biggest story of the weekend comes out of the Jets trading Darrell Revis to Tampa Bay. So now you end up with something neither one of us thought should have happened. I mean, if I'm the Jets, I love it. I'm happy about it. I have one of my closest friends a Jets fan. Not happy about it.
The Jets had to compromise. They wanted a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year. They want 2 first-rounders for him. Instead, they got a first-rounder this year and a conditional pick for next year. So they had to concede a little bit. He goes to Tampa, gets his $16 million a year. Tampa gets somebody who can probably help them stop Drew Brees, Cam Newton, and Matt Ryan. Slow them down just slightly. Tampa was, I think, the second worst passing defense this year.
That's exactly what they were. Was the second worst passing defense this year. And look, I think it helps Tampa, out. But you're talking about It's not like this team. To me, you make this trade if you believe you're ready to win right now.
No, I don't believe that at all. I'll just be honest with you. I think they made this trade because look at the quarterbacks in their division, and when you have the second worst passing defense, you have to do something. I don't think they're on the close. I don't think they're on the cusp. I don't think they're better than the Saints. I don't think they're better than Atlanta. I do think that they are a better team than Cam Newton and the Panthers, but that's overall as a team, not as an individual. Yeah, I look at it and say this is just a move to help them stay competitive in their division. It's a move the Jets had to make at this point because they've already soured that apple cart so badly that there was no chance they were going to re-sign him. Plus, they have enough cap. They don't have the cap space to sign him anyway.
No, they do not.
It just shows what a train wreck this Jets organization is. And I was actually tweeting at a guy, Rich Sheminsky, yesterday about it, and pretty much what I said was the Jets are a mess from the top down. They're a mess from the top of the organization with the owner, Woody Johnson, all the way down to the 53rd man on the roster. They're just a jumbled mess. They still have Tebow for reasons unknown. When they know, and everybody on the planet knows they have no purpose for ever using him ever for anything. Sanchez is still the quarterback and he's just awful. Let's just face it, he's garbage. And I don't care if Jeff Garcia is working with him or not. Who's Jeff Garcia to be the next quarterback guru?
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one.
You look at it, they have no running back. They got rid of Sean Green. They have no playmakers on the outside. They have a depleted offensive line now, in my opinion. They could use help there. Their defense has 0 pass rushers, 0 linebackers, and they're now down to 1 corner in Cromartie. They have so many holes that
they lost both their starting safeties from last year. I mean, they had the second best pass defense in the league last year, but they lost both their starting safeties. Not to cut you short. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying. When I said though about if I'm Tampa Bay, I only make this trade because if I'm ready. Like, what I mean by that is if I'm going to bring in a guy that's going to cost me $16 to $17 million a year, it's because I believe that guy is the one piece I need to go win a Super Bowl. Tampa Bay is not one piece away from going to win a Super Bowl. That's what I meant by that comment. And when I say that, I mean I don't see why you sacrifice what they're sacrificing and then spending what they're spending for one guy.
I'll tell you why.
Look, I know the Jets are loaded with holes. It's not like Tampa Bay's sitting here stacked and ready to go. The
only thing I could say is they didn't see D. Milner falling down to 13. I feel like if they would have thought D. Milner would have fell to 13, they maybe don't make this move, but I don't think that they think that he's going to fall that far.
I think a lot of people would agree with that. I don't think anybody thinks Milner's going to fall down to 13.
And with that being said, in this weak draft class, which everybody agrees is the weakest one we've seen in a few years.
Well, this is a lineman draft. This is defensive line and offensive line.
But this is,
this is the big boy draft. That's what this is. And honestly, to me, this is a draft that makes a difference in what you're going to do over the next 5 to 10 years because I'm a firm believer you win by winning the line of scrimmage, and this is the draft where you're going to draft those guys. None of them are going to have fancy names.
No, but what I'm saying though is that because of that factor, because of a lineman heavy draft, not a lot of skill position out there.
Yes.
They looked and they said, well, how can we then bolster this defense if we know we can't do it through this draft? And that's why they made this move. That's why they said, okay, we know we need secondary help.
And they do. It has to come. Think of the quarterbacks you're going up against. Think about the
and
teams.
Who better than to have a shutdown corner on the outside that could shut down a receiver, especially when you're going up against guys like Breeze and Ryan and Newton. You got to play them 6 times.
Yeah, it's 6 games out of your 16.
That's 6 games. You need to have a really good corner on the outside to stop big plays.
Yeah. I mean, Revis, really what you're trying to do is you're trying to have him take away a side of the field, which will limit what can be done. Because, I mean, to me, I look at New Orleans, and New Orleans doesn't really have – I mean, Marquise Colston and Jimmy Graham are their top wide receivers, but they don't really ever have a focal point on their offense wide receiver-wise. Atlanta, you got Julio Jones and Roddy White to deal with, plus now Tony G coming back. So you got to deal with all that. Cam Newton, you got Steve Smith out there who he may not be the same Steve Smith of 2-3 years ago, but he's still Steve Smith who can go out there and put up numbers and blow past, an average corner whenever he wants to. So I get the idea of adding Darrell Revis to the team. I'm not a fan of making the trade because the Jets would have lost him after this year anyway. And that's where my argument of the fact that you're not in a win-now moment anyway, but then you end up in a bidding war in the offseason. So, I mean, it's not like it's a win-win if you're like, oh, well, we'll just wait till the year's over and then we'll go sign him because then you end up in a bidding war and instead of $16 million a year, maybe you're giving him 19 or maybe you're giving him 20. Now, the Jets, I will say this helps them, and I think it's the right move for them because of the amount of holes they have. They need to get as many draft picks as they can. So on the opposite side of this, and now that we've looked at this sort of from Tampa Bay's point of view, when you look at it from the Jets' point of view, what option do you choose? Do you choose to use both first-round picks and just draft with them? Do you try to bundle them and trade up? Do you try to use one of them and trade down? If you're the Jets, how are you handling this scenario? Because they're at, I believe, 7-13. I believe. I'll double check on that, but I believe they're at 7-13. If they're at 7-13, you're talking about an opportunity to draft 2 starting offensive linemen.
No, 9-13.
9-13. Okay, so it's not 7. So
here's what they need to do. They need a playmaker on the outside, and they need a defensive presence, a pass rusher, somebody who can get to the quarterback, somebody who could do something. That's why they go from Mingo at 9. If he falls down that far, some people are saying he's going to go at 7. Go Mingo at 9, and then you either go Lacey or Tavon Austin at 13. Fill either that need for a bruising runner, because Rex Ryan then can get back to the run game that he loved so much the first 2 years he was there, or they could finally get a playmaker on the outside in Austin. That's the way I would go with it.
So
it's such a lineman-heavy draft that you could get a lineman in the 2nd and 3rd round that isn't going to be that far off of. You need to scoop up what little, what's the word I'm looking for here?
What little playmakers there are.
Exactly.
There's not, and I know what you're
saying.
Skilled
position players.
And this is actually going to be your number one test right now of this new GM that's in New York. Is this guy going to build this team the right way? Because let's be serious. Tannenbaum was on a good stretch. He brings in Mangold. He brings in DeBrickashaw Ferguson. He brings in Darrell Revis. He brings in some guys, and you're like, all right. And then they just start bombing with their draft picks, and I don't know how much you want to blame Rex Ryan for that. he has an impact on it, so there's no question about that. Or Tannenbaum getting full of himself. I don't know. All I know is that this Jets team has a boatload of holes. That's a very good point, though, about saying, this is a heavy draft when it comes down to offensive and defensive linemen. So you got to find what playmakers you can while you can.
That's the way I look at it. But again, I'm not a GM, and no team ever drafts the way I think they should draft. But they all have different agendas. And, I mean, really with the Jets, though, they have so many holes on their team that they're the type of team that should just draft on best available on the board.
I will say one thing. I might consider trading that 9. If you can find somebody that wants to jump up to the top 10. Like, if I'm the Jets, I'm hoping Geno Smith falls. I'm hoping he gets to the 9 and somebody's willing to trade up and still take him top 10. I don't think that happens. I don't think anybody looks at Geno Smith worth the top 10 draft pick. But with the new rookie wage salary thing, teams are more willing to take a risk on a quarterback in that high because they don't have to guarantee him $50 million anymore. So if I can trade the 9, I'm trading the 9 to move back and add a few more picks because, like we said, this team needs help in a boatload of places.
I actually think that you're probably going to see Geno Smith go to a team like the Eagles.
You think they're going to take him at 4, or do you think they're willing to trade up, take somebody else at 4?
I think they could take him at 4.
I do too.
Because I think Chip Kelly needs that kind of guy to run his offense. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, who knows? The Jets need a tight end. They need at least 2 offensive linemen. They need a defensive lineman. They need outside linebacker. They need inside linebacker. They need corner. They need safety. They need a lot. A lot. Poor Jets. Poor Jet fans. Screw the Jets. Poor Jet fans. If you're a Jet fan, I feel for you. I do. I'm a Cowboy fan, and it sucks.